Hola, Lady Low Run Lee here. Hi, Lady Loves and Lowriders. Okay, let's get right down to it. I suppose you're wondering why I'm wearing a fedora today. I had a little accident. Now, I know I told you 2 weeks ago that I was sideswiped by this maniac. Thank God my car was not really damaged. Um, but this accident was not in my car, folks. It was on my job. All right. In the hallway, as you're leaving my job, after you take your money bag and you drop it in the slot, that's if you have to close the register at the end of the day. And I work in the evening, so I'm the one that's usually stuck doing it. Um, there's a transparent, and the key word here is transparent. Um, there's a transparent shelf in this okay lit hallway. It's not poorly lit, but anyway, it's transparent. Now I've used this. I've signed off. There's a pad on top that you have to sign off on to close. To finalize your closing of your department. Um, I've done this 1,000 times, and this particular night, which was last Thursday, I dropped the pen on the floor. Now, I'm not the type of a person to drop a pen or drop anything and leave it for someone else to pick up. That's just not my style. And I hate it when other people behave that way. I just think it's so trifling. But this is one night I should have chosen trifling because I started to leave that pen. I really did. I started to leave it, but that's, like I said, that's not my style. I turned around to go get this pen, and I was rushing because the next morning my daughter has to get up. She has to get the grand to school by 8 a.m. She has to be to work by 8:30 p.m. The blessing is all of this is within a quarter of a mile. Everything. My daughter's job, where I live, where she lives, the baby's school, church, the stores, everything is within a quarter of a mile. So that's a blessing. As a matter of fact, my daughter can walk to work if she wants to. How blessed is that? Well, anyway, and I've very often walked to church, very often. I've done it 1,000 times. But back to the subject at hand. I dropped this pen on the floor and I turned around and I went back to go get it and I rushed down to get it and wham! That shelf hit me right about there above my eyebrow and it lacerated my forehead all the way to my skull. I actually saw my skull. It's white. I didn't, well, anyway, moving right along. Um, Someone yelled out, "Are you okay, Lois?" And I usually always say, "Oh, I'm okay." But this time I really didn't know. I said, "I don't know." I don't think I've ever answered "I don't know" to "Are you okay" in my whole life. Because I really wasn't sure what was going to happen, but I knew that I was hit hard. It really, really, really hurt at first. And then it got numb. I'll talk about that in a minute. Then all of a sudden, the blood started. I had blood all over my face. I don't know if there was blood on the floor because I didn't stick around for the cleanup. I just rushed right off to the hospital. Um, and my manager, the store manager, wanted to know if I wanted an ambulance. I did not want an ambulance. First of all, I didn't want to wait for one. Secondly, I don't want them climbing all over. I don't want to answer a lot of questions. I don't want to have to figure out how I'm going to go back and get my car from the job the next day or whenever. No, I don't want an ambulance. All I really wanted to do was go home. I didn't even want to go to the hospital. But someone named Kelly looked at me and he said, "You're going to need stitches." That's the last thing I wanted to hear. But when I did hear it, I realized that that might have been correct. Because if I needed stitches and I didn't get them, your girl was going to have a gash for the rest of her life. And I don't do gashes if I can avoid it, okay? All right. So they couldn't find the accident reports, but the manager signed off on a sheet of paper, and I was to fill out the accident report when I came back to work. Um, I drove to the hospital. I started to run a few red lights because it was 10 o'clock at night and it wasn't that much traffic outside. And but I figured one accident that night was enough for me. Okay, all right. So I get to the hospital and some clerk says my face is covered with blood now. It stopped for a minute, and then as soon as I got to the hospital, the bleeding started again. So this clerk, I let the blood flow. I didn't want to touch it. I was touching the steering wheel in the car. I didn't want to touch my face. Okay, so this clerk says to me when I'm walking through the door, looking like something from the inner sanctum, covered with blood. I mean, I looked like I had been in a Hollywood costume department, and they made me look, that way. And she says to me, "So what brings you in here tonight?" What an idiot! Are you what? I want to buy pizza? I'm covered with blood. What do you think? I mean, she didn't say, "Would you like to sit? How do you feel? Are you okay? What brings you in here tonight?" To be perfectly honest, there were two young guys sitting there. She was about 40ish, a little skinny, probably thought she was cute. And she had these two guys sitting there with her. One was a guard, one was whomever. And to be perfectly honest, I think she was just putting on a little act for them, trying to sound efficient. She sounded stupid. And I hope I never run into anybody like her again. I'm just so sick of being around ignorance. But anyway, so I went and I washed my hands and I got some tissues and I gave her a dirty look when she asked me, "What brings you in here tonight?" I wanted to, if looks could kill, her family would be arranging a memorial for her right now. I mean, thank God looks don't kill, because I gave her the dirtiest look that I could conjure up. I mean, she deserved, ooh, like shake her. What's wrong with you? You don't belong in a hospital. Not working behind a desk with people who are sick or hurt or whatever, because you're just dumb. But anyway, moving right along. Um, I got 8 stitches, folks. 2 stitches on the inside up against my skull and 6 on the outside. And the wound is really not that big. It's like about that big. But it was a bad wound. I mean, it really was. Um, the gentleman that did the stitches, I think he did a really good job. He was cute too. Uh, as a matter of fact, he looked kind of like a movie star, but his bedside manner was beautiful. Um, he told me he was going to give me about 4 shots of lidocaine, and or is it linocaine? I don't know which one it is. I need to really look it up. I should know, but right now it doesn't really matter. I got a tetanus shot. Nurse came in. She says, "I got to give you a tetanus shot, hon." So I'm getting needles from everywhere. So anyway, he gave me 4 shots, 2 shots inside the wound and 2 on the outside. So he made a statement to me that if, can you see the bandage squeezing through? He said, if you start to feel the stitches, because I said, "Doc, I don't want to feel anything. I have felt enough for one night." So he said, "Well, if you start to feel it, let me know and I'll give you some more, I'll numb it some more." And I was like, you know what? I don't want to wait until I feel something. I want you to numb it right now. So let's get it done. Shoot me up some more and let's get this done. In the meantime, it's like 5 minutes after 12. This all started. I got to the hospital about 10:30. Okay, so he gave me a few more shots. I had to pretend like I was getting Botox. I figured if I pretend like I'm getting it for vanity's sake, maybe I could handle it mentally. So I told the doc, I said, I'm going to feel like I'm going to pretend like I'm getting Botox. And he says, "Well, have you ever had Botox?" I guess he was going to reassure me that the needle was no bigger than a Botox needle. But I told him, and I said, "No, black don't crack. It may cut and bleed, but it doesn't crack." He thought it was funny, so did I. I was just trying to add a little levity to an already horrible, horrific situation. No prejudice to my white sisters out there, but I didn't invent the phrase. So anyway, back to the situation. So he covered my face, he covered my chest, and told me not to touch it as not to contaminate the paper that he put on me. Then he put another paper right here on my eye, and so the only thing that was exposed was the wound. And he really was good. I mean, I could feel he knew what he was doing. And underneath the paper over my face, I started to cry. I felt so bad that I did that to my face. My face has been so good to me, no real wrinkles, and just no acne or anything. I had it when I was young, but I outgrew it and it smoothed right over nicely. I felt so bad that I did that to my face. Um, but the good thing about it is when he gave me the needles, it was already numb. By the time I got to the hospital, I touched the area around after I washed my hands, and it was numb, which is a very good point. That the way God made our bodies, when we undergo certain levels of pain, it shuts off. It's just like shock. Your body goes into shock when you've undergone a situation that's created so much pain that you can't handle it and the body can't handle it. So the trauma of that experience shuts your body down. Now, who other than a great God could have made a machine like that? I mean, God thought of everything. And my father used to always say, who wouldn't serve a God like this? And when I was a kid, I knew what it meant, but as an adult, I really, really, really know what it means. So just remember that everything, I often said when I was in college, I often said that if you don't believe in God, once you've taken a course in human anatomy or anatomy and physiology, by the time you learn about the human body, you will believe in God. I guarantee you that because no man could have come up with all these. I mean, from one cell to the organs and the systems in the body, it's amazing. It is truly, truly amazing the way God made the human machine. It really is. It's awesome. Well, anyway, it kicked in and it was numb around here. Now, when the doctor told me that he was going to give me a needle inside the wound, it gave me the creeps because when I had this Christian fish done, he double lined the fish, and I didn't ask him to do that. Had I known he was going to do that, I would have stopped it because the lines in this Christian fish are so close that when he did the second line, it felt like he was cutting into an already open wound. So I still haven't gotten over that yet, and I'll never let that happen again. So, in a tattoo session. Um, but when the doctor told me he was going to give me a needle in the wound, I thought about that day that I got the Christian fish done. So, needless to say, it gave me the creeps. But I didn't feel it. Like I said, I was numb. He did a wonderful job. I have to keep it clean. I'm going tomorrow to have the stitches removed. Not the two on the inside. They are dissolvable stitches, but the stitches on the outside are the old-fashioned kind with the black thread and all that stuff. No staples or anything like that. I'm glad that he used the tools that he did. Now, I'm swollen. My whole face is swollen. This is turning into a black eye here. You might see the swelling. I'm trying to hide as much as I can. But there's swelling there. It's all puffy. I'm puffy. My whole face is still a little bit on the puffy side. So, um, puffy, I know. Sean Puffy Combs. His birthday is November 4th. My birthday is November 4th. So that's really funny, right? Puffy. But it is a little swollen there. Swollen around my face. I'm getting a lot of rest. I'm trying not to bend over too much. Uh, Slowing down. Slowing down is the key here. You must not, haste makes waste. And whoever coined that phrase, I have to take my hat off to them because they knew what they were talking about. It's probably an accident that made them come up with that, to be perfectly honest. But speaking of the human body, corpus callosum. You guys know what corpus callosum is? That is fat in the between the left and right hemispheres of the brain, and in that corpus callosum, is an electronic system that promotes communication between the left and right hemispheres of the brain. Women have almost 3 times as much corpus callosum in their brains that men do. So, all of you who think that women think more, or women, we may have male doctors and male scientists, but when it comes to just everyday thinking, when it comes to rational thinking, right there in the middle of the brain. And God did that too. He gave women more corpus callosum than men, probably because women have to deal with men and children and mothering and nursing babies and taking care of those babies for 18 years, or depending on the environment that you live in. I just thought I'd throw that in. I love talking about corpus callosum. Go look it up. It's real interesting. But God thought of everything. But I guess you can see the bandage. It's quite big. It's about, I'd say about that big. I've been wearing a couple of hats. Excuse me. My throat is a little raspy. I've been wearing a couple of different hats to work. Actually, one major white furry hat that I wear. And it's kind of like a white band. It's really nice, but everybody thinks I'm wearing it for Christmas. I'm not. I'm covering up a multitude of errors, and I'm going to slow down, though. I promise you I'm going to do that. So anyway, I'm going to do a Christmas video. The Grand is off tomorrow. I'm getting my stitches removed tomorrow. So the Grand is off, and maybe we'll do a video. She did a video while I was on the telephone one day. I found it in my archives the other day. So what I'll probably do is post her video and show it to her on YouTube, which I'm sure she'll get a kick out of that. But I'm going to start hiding this laptop. I want you to know that. So, oh yeah, and a shout out to my girl Beverly Bell in Teaneck, New Jersey. Her father, Bubby, we called him. He passed on sometime last week. I just found out yesterday. He was the son of the pastor of the church that I grew up in. We had a radio program in our church way back in the late 50s, all through the 60s and into the 70s. And Bubby, or Joseph Jr., he was, well, Joseph, because his father, our pastor, was James, Bishop James Bell. The organization was Mount Sinai, great organization, proud to have grown up there, very much into education and so forth. Anyway, he was the son of my pastor, like I said, and he, during the radio program, he was the announcer. His wife played organ, and we had a few piano players and organ players in our church, my mother being one of them. Anyway, he was the announcer of the church, of the radio program for years, and later on became a preacher, and later on became the pastor of the church I grew up in after my pastor passed on. A few of my relatives, we all left Mount Sinai and went to other organizations that were connected to Mount Sinai in the 40s. That's a long story. I'll tell you about that one day. But anyway, although we left Mount Sinai, a couple of my aunts and uncles who passed on, he was good enough and had enough love for my family to come and eulogize my relatives. Like I said, although we had left the organization, but he did it anyway. And I have to take my hat off to him. So he passed away, I believe he was in his late 80s. So he did well. He outlived my parents. I'm not sure what he died from, but he did pass on. So shout out to Beverly and Tony and Joey and all the grandchildren and the Bell family. Like I said, I only found out yesterday. So those of you who know Bubby Bell, who don't know that he passed away, he's gone now. And he's with all my relatives and all of his. And I'm sure they're all having a joyous time together in God's presence, in the presence of our Lord. So I guess that's it. I just wanted to come and tell you what happened to your girl and why I'm wearing this hat. My video's 20 minutes now. I'm gonna cut it short. Well, not that it's not too late to cut it short, but I'm gonna cut it short anyway. So he lives. Remember, he made this human body, and it's healing. It itches a little bit, and that's proof that it's healing. So thank you, Lord, once again, and I live in gratitude that it was not my eye. No matter what happens to me, there's always something in it that I can be thankful for because it could always be worse. So keep me in your prayers. I'll do the same for you. Te quiero mucho, Lady Loves and Low Riders, and I'll talk to you soon. Lady Lauren Lee signing off.